Salutations. Who is ready for this episode, friends? It's been a long time coming. I've been deep in audio world to the point where I got this in June. Next thing I knew, it was July 4th, and here we are, August 10th. Thank you for being here. As you see in front of you, we have the AVP. We have 4 different versions, and I'm doing that to show you what you hear. You're going to hear more of certain conversations, or less conversations, or more words, or less words, just to show you the different variations. And we're going to start off with the fight, because that's where we left off last time. And the reverb was in the way. Here you're going to see that the reverb I'm going to use is going to help to hear more conversation. And this RX11 is quite a powerful tool, to the point where the conversations you can hear on it is pretty scary. There are, I'm sure, some that have nothing to do with the students there. There's people that live there. But that's for a different episode. We're just going to do the fight, and then we're going to start off in the beginning. And when I first got this, in the beginning, a lot of information is said, and I wanted to wait and see the temperature of this case. And personally, I'm not that easily pleased or easily convinced, but if you accept a Mad Lib confession, that is way too simple for me. He just said yes. They pretty much put all the words in, and he just said yes, and nothing else. I'm sure that's not what the victims wanted, or the parents. And this way that we treat people who are no longer here to have a voice is really gross. They made such a stink about all at the trial. They're going to see the photos. Now they're selling the photos to mass media. They're making money off of the victims. And what is this with Dylan having a GoFundMe for her new life? How is she the main victim out of all of this? And the way they keep pushing the narrative of this case still, like in the intro, makes me believe that they are using the big lie technique. And if you look up who started that, it unfortunately doesn't surprise me that they use that technique. We're still stuck in that time period. Well, some of us are. A majority, unfortunately, are. So I'm going to say the warning now. You're going to hear words. You're going to hear actions. And it goes back to what Stacy Chapin has said. And she's the one that told the world about this happening. I was the one that brought up the 2 a.m. And here she has brought up that there was nothing about drugs and there's no weird love triangle going on, which I do believe her. I believe her on that. But there's definitely a 3 going on, if you catch my drift. So that's why I'm doing the 4 versions, so you can hear in 4 different ways. And with this software, the only thing you can do with it is the machine does majority of the work and it puts it together for you. So it's objective. And here is today's version, and you can do a waveform statistic. So here it shows you that it has picked up as low as negative 50.33 decibels, which is, we can hear at 60 decibels. And some versions that I've done, there's been negative 60. So that is crazy. And here you see it says possibly clipped samples. There's 0. The DC offset is at 0, and it's 0 because I raised the noise floor. And I had to learn about that, and from what my understanding is that it picks up other electronics. And it was picking up other electronics, and it was happening during the fight. And you're going to hear that. I also heard it in the beginning, which I thought maybe if I cleaned it too much, sometimes there's these artifacts. But as you listen through, you're going to hear that same type of sound. And we did do on one of the Moscow deaths about how they use the walkie throughout the drive home. I want to say it was with Haley. I could be wrong, but with one, it was Haley. I can't think of it right now. I'll probably think of it while we're doing this. And they talked the whole way back. It was like a 6-hour drive. So we're going to hear some stuff. And it's unfortunate that a simple biological action that we do, that everything does on this planet, animals, birds, plants, they all do it. And once you start taking away a natural human biological action, you're going to get weird results. And I truly believe they do that purposefully so they can make money off of it on both ends. Because when you shame and guilt people, you can get a lot of money out of that in different ways. And the way they push this narrative and the way that the FBI has used the backdoor method pretty much in IgG, the OGs know how I brought that up with the Apple phone. Way back. So we're going to listen to all 4 versions. We're going to start at 117. We're going to listen to the first minute of each. And then I'll stop. And I'm saying you're going to hear some choice words right off from the jump. So this one we'll start with the final that I just did today. I just uploaded it and did nothing to it except for just raise the loudness and normalization. So you do hear that, like a fence, like a chain fence or a metal fence of some sorts being opened, and you hear very lightly someone say thank you. You hear that fence being opened and closed a couple of times throughout. We're hearing the beginning of the fight where they sing that song. You hear the fists, them hitting each other. And I don't know if you picked up on it, but I heard it. She sucked his dick. So you're going to hear that a lot in the beginning. It's said a lot. And you hear certain people talk about how she did that, and they're really pissed about it. So here is the one that I put together. And I edited it. I did a lot of different things. I went on a journey. So here is this version. And that Wake Me Up, it's loud in some and it's not as loud in others because of the balance. Okay, so you heard some more towards the end there. And I'm that guy. So what, dude? So what? Who cares? I think the people who care the most are the ones who feel left out. You just wish it was you. So here is the final, but with the reverb has changed. I changed it. Okay. And then here's the last one. So this is 1 a.m. So this was, I did this back in, I'm going to say early July. And I just left it the way it is. And did. So this one I just used the RX11, the repair assistant. So I did different versions of different tools that I used. And then I just added the gain and then pumped up the volume. All right. And you heard more of the fight in that aspect too. So now we're hearing the fight in the background and the conversation that's happening. I want to say it's around the group that we're singing that song. Now I saw on Bubbly that someone noticed that there was 2 fights going on at the same time, which you're going to hear that as we go further. I was thinking that there was 2 fights when I was first listening to this. I don't know if it was 2 different fights or if it was an echo. They were just echoing each other if there was a delay. But I was leaning more towards there's 2 different fights. And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but they also mentioned that Fat Joe was there. And it makes total sense how he got so defensive to make a TikTok saying how he has nothing to do with this case and he was not there when they were murdered. How would you know what time they were murdered, first of all? But to get that defensive for something that you have nothing to do with speaks volumes. Definitely projecting there. So here we go. At the beginning of this one is just one that I just uploaded today. And we'll do the next minute of 18 and 19. So I heard, get some, make it right. I heard David a couple times. You definitely hear another fight going on. A female yelling. She's definitely saying words. I want to say it gets more clear in the other ones we're going into. I just don't want to say anything because there's so many different... I've done this so many times that I don't want to say too much, but I don't want to say too less at the same time. So I'm really having you listen for yourself. So you heard more there. It definitely needs some fine tuning where you hear Ethan's name being said more. Definitely you hear Reed's name being said more there in the other fight that's going on. Okay. So between 17 and 18 minutes, we have heard a lot of new, well, for me, it's a lot of new information compared to the last time that we went through this. And now let's go through 18 and 19. right, so we heard more in that one as well. This investigation and being investigated, I hear that a lot throughout even the first 5 minutes in the beginning. But there was some type of investigation done. And now more people are being investigated because of something that had happened. And I think we're going to hear that in the beginning. My timing's off a little bit. But I definitely heard about investigating. They're out to get you. And more of those two fights going on. So let's go into 19 minutes to 20. All right, so we heard more about investigating. I want to say investigating Ethan. I'm a little rusty. So let's go into the next one. So you heard more clearly there, can we stop them? And a female say, can we stop them? And she says, no. And then you hear almost like someone's talking into a voice changer, saying Ethan's name. And I want to say Xana's name too. So you'll hear another walkie be used. And I know I mentioned this earlier about how we went over in Moscow Murders, how they used walkies driving home, from home to the university with one of I want to say it's Haley King. And here you can hear a little of that voice, like someone has a voice changer of some sorts. I do hear it in the beginning within the first 10 minutes. And at first, I hear it throughout the first 23 minutes. And at first I was thinking it was something with the software, that maybe it was cleaned too much or so on and so forth. But no, this is not that type of software, I believe. So what you hear is what you hear. So, and people have been saying certain aspects about this fight and about what has happened. All right, so let's hear it with this. so you heard that voice again. And this one is without the reverb that I use to help listen to it more clearly. This one is with the reverb, that I use the reverb to help. Just overall, not that particular part, but just overall. Because as you see, it's 20 minutes. I start at the beginning of the videos when I start my editing. And I had to learn not to edit too much because then you couldn't hear anything out. It was just way too clean. I would have to really, pump up the volume and do more work, which that's not the point of the software. So you heard more of that. You heard, can we stop it? Can we stop them? And she said no. And you hear someone coaching on Ethan in that fight. So I wonder if that's like a loudspeaker of some sorts, that everyone's hearing that, and that's why maybe that person's saying, can we stop them? And she said no. But this is the area where I showed you with the DC offset, which is interference of other electronics with the software. And then you have to raise the noise floor to help offset that. So that's what makes me think it's some type of electronic that's being used when we hear that. So you heard more of the fight going on, and you hear like a low voice talking in the background, a deep voice talking about Ethan. And I haven't been able to use this tool. I just use it mildly, which is declick and declip. And what this does, this declick, is it takes away air, so to speak, because you need noise in order to hear information. You don't want to clean it up too much because then you're not going to be able to hear anything. You need noise because that's how sound is carried. It's carried through the air with the noise. So it cleans up the sound around the voice. So hopefully, or I will eventually get to that point more, because I just did it mildly. All right, so here's the next version. Went too far. So there you hear the other walkie when they say, Pete, take him away. And you hear like that do-do-do-do. That I definitely see as a walkie. You're going to hear that car is starting to rev up too. And that's what I thought initially. Maybe it was the car making that sound with that low, like electronic sounding voice changer. But as time has gone on, I don't believe that's what it is. So here is the other version. So there you hear, I didn't need to protect you, amongst others. It's just a lot of information coming at you at one time. So it's hard to stick with one. At least with me, it's like that with my ADD. Like it's just, there's so much information here. A lot of different conversations, in and out of conversations. So you hear more of that male voice from a distance. It's like he's yelling from a distance. And I don't know what people are laughing for. It could be something totally on the side, has nothing to do with it, but I highly doubt it. And some people have a nervous laugh, a nervous tick type of thing, but shit's gone too far. this is the game with the 23. So that's not going to be the best version of that, but that's definitely the car, that low sounding car that we all have talked about. Some people think it's like a diesel V6 engine. I want to say that's during that part where you're hearing, but you hear that Peter, that's that walkie again. So let's hear what this version is. So you heard, shut your ass up, pull over, bitch. So it's definitely a car. Okay. That's very uncomfortable, that engine. So that one you heard more clearly. It's more clear than the others. There's definitely conversation going on. It sounds like the fight is done. And people are leaving or coming. Before we're just doing up to the 23 minutes, and then we're going to go back to the beginning. So I heard, I tore his ass up, Reed got in there. He was mad. All right, so that version there was less more conversation, but not clear. All right, so I heard a lot more conversation there, more clear, talking about Reed. All right, so that is, I just did a little more just because you can hear more of that conversation. And see, I'm on the fence with that reverb or that voice. You do hear it throughout, but if you remember, we heard that same voice, but it was with one of these, which I didn't do any editing to, as well as this one. This one I did change the reverb on there, and you heard it the most on that one. And I want to say you really didn't hear it on this one, and this one does not. Okay. So this is the only one that has the reverb. And you heard it on all the others. This I wanted to hear a little bit more of. And you do hear more of that voice. So I'm still on the fence. But as we go through this, you'll see. Or you'll hear. So. In the next video, I'll definitely be more organized. It's just, I'm a little rusty. So we're going to go back to the beginning now. At least to the first 3 minutes, because right now we're at 48 minutes. So this is why I'm doing 4, so you can hear it 4 different times in 4 different ways. When we get to this part, to this video and finish, I'll tell you parts of what I've heard. So you hearing that whistling? That's more of the artifact. That's from the software. That's an artifact. But if you clean it up too much, that's the type of artifact you get. With that voice, that sound, I could see it with the reverb down here, but the other ones are not reverbed. So when people say artifact, that's what it's talking about, that whistling type noise. And you can tell that's artifact. So you can hear a lot of artifact in there. It sounds like water, the whistling, that's the artifact. And this is the one I did the gain on RX11, which to show that when you do that, it's not effective as taking the time to work it through. And parts of this, like where you see these lines, like some people had commented, which I agreed with them at first. you want to get rid of some of this because you think that's going to help with like the hum or the crackling. And I learned very quickly that that's not necessarily true with this software. This helps carry the sound. So you need some of this to help for you to hear what's going on. If you take it away, it's not going to take away the words, but it's going to make artifacts around it because there's nothing for it to pick it up, if that makes sense. All right, so you definitely heard a lot more in that version. And this is the one that I just did today and didn't add anything to it except for raise the noise floor, and then I normalized it. But I didn't like clean anything up. I just uploaded this today. So it shows you that when I upload it into RX11, it remembers all the other edits I've done and what I want and what I don't want. So you heard more conversation. It was more balanced. I heard that's why it's our responsibility to something, Dylan and Bethany's secrets. And the others were like, well, fuck their secret. I heard, she said that to you. And he goes to say something along the lines of Ethan, Dylan, and Bethany. So Xana is telling him this. And he's surprised that she's telling him the secret, like it's normal. And I don't think Xana's, personally, as a female, and I've been in relationships, and if you've been done wrong by your boyfriend, even if you're on a break at the time, I don't know if that's happened or not, and something happened between the three of them, which is what it sounds like, I'm telling people because I'm hurt. I'm personally hurt about it. And I hate to say this, but Xana was a Pi Phi, not an active member. And Dylan and Bethany apparently were active members. And I could see them doing that just to, get at Xana. And at the same time, it's not like Ethan is someone that a lot of girls, I'm sure, were interested in. He's tall, number one. Tall guys always get a lot of attention because they're noticeable. Sounds like he was a nice guy. He was a good guy. He wasn't a jerk. And, he's 20 years old. What guy's going to say no? That's probably the most normal thing I've heard about this case so far is if that happened between the three of them, and Ethan, we'll hear later on, he says, it wasn't my idea. He's a guy. He's going to go for it. That's what guys do, especially you're 20 and you're in college. To me, that sounds normal. When you get a lot of attention, and from girls, when you get a lot of attention and you're not used to all this new attention, it's not easy to handle. And you hear this a lot with people who, I know a few people in my life who made major changes, and all of a sudden they were always kind of on the bigger side and they became on the skinnier side, and they were not able to handle the attention they were receiving and made some poor choices. That sounds normal to me. That's human behavior. That's what happens. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. It's just is what it is. And when we try to make this, when outside influences, pressure and shame and guilt on something that's natural, it makes people act and react in ways that they normally wouldn't. Like, we don't get all the answers. That's why we need adults who have adult jobs to help guide people who are younger than them. Not try to hide and fix wrongdoings by extremes. I mean, that's something like a child does. When a child gets caught with something, they chuck it or they bury it. That's what kids do at this point with your education and your responsibility and your role. We should be out of that phase. But I'm a dreamer. So let's go to the next one. All right, I was just totally distracted by that. That has... about that voice again. All right, so here is another version, and let's see if this one is more clear. So here he said they both admitted it. And you're going to hear a new name, Sookie, which there is a Sookie that's a Pi-Fi. But we're going to hear more conversations going forward. So some of them are totally separate, meaning he's talking about Sookie, and you're going to hear more about other acts. That doesn't necessarily mean it's about Sookie doing those things, is what I'm trying to say. You have to really keep your ear on the voices, the sound of the voices, and just the words they're saying, because they do kind of blend into each other. So there I heard, "Calm down, David, take a breath." That was the most that jumped out at me, because recently I've just started hearing that more and more recently. All right, and more of David. And they admitted it, then they didn't admit it. And where we're hearing that kind of scratching is right here. Oh, wait a minute, what am I doing? Right here. there. So I don't know what exactly is causing that. It's almost like it's been scratched. And if you want to listen to that with your headphones, you can hear that. So you're welcome. All right, so let's go back to this. And one more minute, and then that will be for the rest of this video. And that other noise that you just heard, someone just left my house, coughed, opened the door, so I apologize with that. All right, so it's Xander. And so we're hearing what is going on around the campus or in that area of 1330 prior to the fight. All right, and you hear another name, Riley, and you hear a female say, Kyle, Xana? I think she says Xana again. accidentally hit the wrong pause or the wrong step. So there we go. A lot of information in 4 different aspects or 4 different ways. Some you could hear more than others. You definitely hear low conversation. Definitely would like it to be more clear, and sometimes it was very clear. I will be doing more of these weekly. In the beginning, if you heard it, you heard it. If you didn't, you didn't. Because that's how I'm going to handle the situation. I'm putting it out there. I know what I heard. I'm sure others have heard it. That's why I did the disclaimer. And with that information, I can understand the intensity more so than the story that they're giving us. And as that used to be the police officer there, Fry, it's a small, close-knit, tight-knit community. So information like that is going to spread like wildfire, and it's going to heighten up more than others. And it's going to be talked about more as the further we go into this timeline. As for that voice, I'm in it, I'm with it, and I'm not with it. I'm on the fence. Sometimes I think, oh my gosh, that's what it really is. And other times, is it just interference with the low engines or the other engines that are in and out of there throughout that time period? Because there was a lot of activity going on, even though they tried to tell us that it was a quiet, unusually quiet night of some sort. So, and having a quiet night in a college town where the college is the hub of that area, to have a quiet night like that is not likely. So, like the big lie technique, all these huge inconsistencies, and why people are more willing to accept a large untruth than a small truth. And even though that truth of what we've heard is a big deal, because it's huge. That's a huge decision. It happens a lot. And it's fortunate if that is true and that it did happen and it was done safely. And that could be why she's been the center of attention of this whole case, because it is a big deal. But at the same time, the way that it was done and reacted because of that is way out of proportion. That is, it's crazy. That's how low emotional intelligence on very many levels and age groups. And now it's looking more and more, which I've already knew. I've always had my mind set on that. But now this is making it more and more that it doesn't look like he did. I don't think he was a hired hitman. This was very personal to whoever. So, thank you all for listening. Let me know in the comments. And I will be doing these again on a weekly basis. Mostly this, but also now going back to my other I guess, categories of the Moscow murders. I'll finish that off. Some of you have been commenting on that. I'll also be doing more of research papers. I've got several in the back pocket. I was going to do the staging. I held off on that for a reason, and I'm glad I did, amongst others. So this is the first one I am doing on YouTube. The others I'm going to have on my website, and there will be a fee. So I will do the others on my website as well. But when it comes to the research paper, I will be doing those on YouTube because that's more of a teaching aspect. And I will definitely do the Moscow Murders on YouTube as well, because I need to finish that off. But moving forward, the rest of the Linda Lane, and there's a lot of Linda Lane. You have all those hours. So let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you for being here. Until next time.